Hi friends, welcome back to the Avocado Toast Budget. If you're new here, my name is Lexa, and today I am really excited because we are going to talk about 2023 savings challenges for every budget. No matter how tight your budget is, no matter how much extra money you might think that you have, going into 2023, I know a lot of us are really unsure about everything, but especially our finances, and it can be so overwhelming to even think about tackling a budget, tackling your finances in general, and I think that savings challenges are a really good and fun way to kind of dip your toes in the water of managing your money. Because it's like a game, okay? You can challenge other people in your life, you can just challenge yourself. It's something to keep coming back to that isn't the same monotonous, boring shit day after day. Plus, it's an awesome way for you to keep track of your savings and really see how all of the hard work that you're putting in is really paying off. I've collected a list here of some of my personal favorite savings challenges that I feel like work no matter who you are, what your savings style is, where you spend your money, whether you spend in cash or on a credit card or on a debit card, whether you have very variable income where you have no idea how much you're going to be taking home every week, or if you have a salaried income or your income is very stable, you are going to find something that is going to work for you in this list. We've got a lot of fun things to cover, so let's go ahead and get into it. The first one I want to talk about is the iconic classic 52-week challenge. The idea here is that on week one, whether you're starting on like January 1st or literally whenever week one is for you, you save $1, week two, $2, week three, $3, week 48. Apparently numbers meant absolutely nothing to me while I was filming this. I have no idea what I was saying. So to clarify, the 52-week savings challenge is when you save $1 on week one, $2 on week two, so on and so forth. I will put up a graphic that makes a lot more sense than me just rambling off a bunch of numbers. I really like this challenge because it helps get you started by saving little bits at a time. $1 a week feels pretty manageable, and then $2 a week just feels like a little bit more than that. 3, 4, so on and so forth. You don't feel like you're ever diving into saving a whole bunch of money, which can be a really good way to get started if the idea of saving money really overwhelms you, or if your budget is really tight right now and you don't know how you would be able to save chunks of money at a time, especially right now. It doesn't require a ton of brain energy on a day-to-day basis, but it keeps you coming back to managing your money. And I feel like that's a good middle ground to be at, especially when you're first getting started. However, I will say that my one gripe with this challenge is that if you do it how it's written out, by the last couple of months, you're saving a lot of money every week, and that might just not be reasonable for a lot of people. But there is a way that we can modify this to make it work for you. And that, hello, Oliver. Okay, so that brings me to my next savings challenge, which is honestly one of my personal favorites, and that is the Post-it jar challenge. How you can use this challenge to kind of modify the 52-week challenge, which is what I've done before. You write the numbers 1 through 52 on separate Post-it notes, fold them up, put them in a little jar, and you pull one every week. That way, the hope is that you get a little bit more variety and you're not stressed having to save a ton of money toward those end weeks, because hopefully it's kind of balancing itself out over time. You'll get weeks where you get let off the hook, maybe some of those lower numbers, and then weeks where you have to kind of challenge yourself, maybe find little ways to cut back to make some of those bigger numbers work. But the reason that I love this Post-it jar savings challenge so much is it's so versatile. So maybe you're thinking to yourself, I could save way more than that. You can write numbers on little Post-its for whatever numbers work for you. If you know that somewhere between $5 to $10 a week works for you, stay in that range. Stay somewhere that kind of balances it out, where you get some weeks that are easier, some weeks that are more of a challenge. If you know that $100 to $200 a week is more reasonable for you, stay within that range. Find ways to challenge yourself. Find ways that lets you off the hook every once in a while. This is so customizable that it can really work for any budget because you're tailoring it to what works for you. Plus, it's just fun to come back every week, and I like a good surprise. And then it's like a good little challenge too. The next one is the bill challenge. Usually the most popular one of this is the $5 bill. If you're someone who spends a lot of cash or you earn a lot of cash, this is a really good one because the idea is pretty simple. Anytime you come across a $5 bill, you save it. Maybe $5 doesn't work for you. Maybe you'd rather do $1 or $10 or $20 bills. But you challenge yourself throughout the year that anytime you come in contact with one of those bills, you put it away rather than putting it back towards your spending. I rarely ever have cash on me, so this one wouldn't really work for me, but I know that there are a lot of people like servers or bartenders or people who make tips that you do at least earn money in cash, even if you don't spend as much cash. And I also know that there are people who love being an all cash spender, love budgeting and paying for things with cash, and this can be a really good one if you're someone like that. Next up is the thing that I like to call the cancellation challenge. The idea here is that you go through all of your monthly subscriptions, see if there's anything that's coming out of your account that you don't recognize, or you know you don't use, or you know that you've needed to cancel it for a while and you just haven't. Challenge yourself to cancel those things that you don't use or you don't find value out of, but rather than just canceling them and then being like, oh great, now I have more money to spend. You want to challenge yourself to set aside that money in savings every month instead. So for example, just to expose the hypocrite that I am, I know that I'm paying like $27 a month for my Planet Fitness membership every month. So if I were to go and cancel that, rather than canceling it and be like, okay, whew, that's one less expense I have to worry about, I would then challenge myself to put that $25 a month I was spending on Planet Fitness and save that money instead. The idea is that you're being really purposeful with your money and being purposeful with where that money is going once you have saved it. Because otherwise it's really easy to cancel subscriptions and then just end up spending that money on other things, and then you don't really feel like you're ever getting ahead. Next up is the keep all the change challenge. Again, if you are an all cash spender or you do spend a lot of money in cash, this is perfect. It's so simple. It is like that classic OG savings idea where you're just going to take any change that you come in contact with, put it in a jar, set it aside for later. The idea here is that those little bits of savings over time can really add up to be something huge. Of course, the more that you deal with cash, the better that this savings challenge is going to work for you. Oliver, your head's just gonna be here this whole time? Okay, cool. But don't worry, if you're someone who doesn't deal a lot in cash, there is a digital version of that we're gonna talk about next. The next savings challenge I love is the roundup challenge. The idea is that if I make a purchase for $7.67, I am going to round up to $8 and save that little bit of extra change. And then slowly but surely, as I start to make lots of different little purchases, that is going to add up. But in the scheme of things, to my brain, $7.67 doesn't sound much different than $8, so it doesn't feel like I'm having to give up much, because in reality, I'm not giving anything up. I'm just rounding up a little bit more. There are banks and different apps that offer this service. I believe Ally has a version of this. I love Ally. It's my favorite savings account. Especially if you're on TikTok, you probably have heard me talk a lot about them. I will link the video I have on YouTube talking about them and their savings buckets up here. It wasn't sponsored, I was just talking about how much I love them. Although now I do work with them on TikTok. They're not paying me to talk about them on here. I just genuinely love all the services they provide, and I do believe that they have that kind of like roundup feature if you have a checking and a savings account with them. I also know that Acorns is like a popular app that does this, except that it rounds up your change and invests it instead, which is a type of savings, but a little bit different, since ideally you want to invest for the long term, rather than if you just put money in a savings account, that money is a little bit more stable. I believe that there are also different credit cards and debit cards that offer these features, so definitely take a look at the companies that you are already with and see if they offer anything like this, because it's such an easy way to save a little bit at a time. The next super fun creative savings challenge is the weather savings challenge. The original idea of this, I believe, was that you take a look at whatever the highest temperature was for the week and you set that money aside inside of a bank account. However, you could definitely customize this depending on where you live and what's realistic in your budget. If you live somewhere where it's really hot, and it reaches up to like the hundreds in the summer all of the time, you might just not have enough room in your budget to save that every week. Maybe you have enough room in your budget to save that every month. You take a look at the highest temperature every month. Maybe it's somewhere where it's really cold, and you can actually do that like on a weekly, or it does work on a monthly basis for you. Again, it's all about finding ways to customize these savings challenges for whatever works for you and your budget. But this is kind of just like a fun little way to spice up your savings challenges, and then you never really know what you're gonna save. And then you're challenged to save more some weeks or some months, and then you know that you get a little bit of breather other months when it's a little bit cooler. A savings challenge that I think could work for so many different people is what I like to call the percent savings challenge. The idea is that you start off with just saving 1% of your take-home income. If you're an employee and you get paid with like a direct deposit system, this can actually be really easy to do before the money even hits your account. Talk to your job, see if there's a way for you to assign a certain amount of money from your paycheck to get automatically deposited into a separate account other than your checking account. Tons of places will do this for you, and you can specify how much. And I recommend you just start off with 1%, and then slowly, whether that is every year, every 6 months, every couple of months, move it up by 1% to 2%, 3%, 4%. Focusing on a percent rather than a set amount is really good, because then if you are making less money and therefore have less wiggle room in your budget, the percent is going to be smaller than someone who is taking home more money and might have more room in their budget. Plus, starting with just 1% at a time is a really great way to start setting a little bit of money aside and getting used to being without that money. And then slowly but surely, you'll be used to spending less and living on less, but you're still saving that extra money. And last but not least is the Side Hustle Savings Challenge. This is really awesome, especially if you're someone who needs to boost your savings pretty quick. We've talked about this kind of concept in my emergency funds video. This idea is that you just take on a new side hustle, some new form of income, and rather than spending any of that money, you're just gonna go ahead and set it aside into savings automatically. This especially works well if you are already used to living off of your normal day-to-day main job income, but you wanna be able to boost your savings a little bit without ever getting used to living off more money and therefore spending more money. By putting your side hustle money automatically aside in savings, it can really build up fast over time, and this is awesome, especially if you have some big savings goals. So that is it for today's savings challenge video. I really hope that you enjoyed and you learned something cool. Let me know down in the comments, do any of these speak to you? Have you tried out any of these before? What kind of savings challenges do you like to do? If you're not feeling too chatty, leave me like a pig emoji or a piggy bank if they have one of those to let me know that you made it all the way to the end of this video. I appreciate you all so much. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Bye.